You can relax now. You're with Brother No Problems. You're in the deep end with Jeff the Pool Boy. You know what it's time for. James on James.
The trick is to get the oil off your skin before it reacts. Once it goes into your skin, like below the epidermis, the reaction is already, like, it's done. So if you can play with it all day if you wash.
Yeah,
I've not tested that theory, but scientifically, it's...
Well, so I can handle it and mess with, like, poison ivy and stuff. It's only when you start moving it around and that's the problem, is that you don't wash it off or something like that. Then you're scratching behind your head and or other places.
My whole summer was shot. I would go in there and I would turn the tub on as hot as it would go, and I would just burn my skin.
That's what. Yeah.
The only thing that would, like, give me momentary release was just
that's what I do with sunburn.
Absolutely, just burn it.
You burn your skin after it's burnt?
Yeah, with sunburn, you take the hottest showers you can stand.
Oh man,
no, and it'll take away. It'll help with the burning.
I don't know about that.
It does.
Not that it was a good idea to do that with poison ivy, but when you're you're ready to rip your skin off. It's like I'll do anything.
Yeah, but sunburn, it does help. Hot showers help.
If your skin's peeling, but not right after you get burnt. What are you, crazy?
Yeah.
You are crazy.
That might be why you were burnt. You weren't sunburned.
You weren't even sunburned.
I was water burnt.
You're just. My boys will do that. They get out of the shower and I'm like, you guys are glowing red. They open the door and, like, just a wall of steam comes out. The walls are dripping.
I can't
water.
usually stand hot showers like that.
I've started trying to take cold showers, like
really?
All this medical benefits of cold showers. It's invigorating. I tell you what, you scream a lot.
Talk about short showers.
You let that thing run, like, as cold as you can, and just, like, you kind of brace yourself, and you're like, ah! So you feel like you're in a prison movie, like where you goes down.
Turn you hot, cold, hot.
Well, if you work outside all day, sometimes that is refreshing because
you can't go too cold too quickly though if you're outside.
The frost line here is 18 inches.
Yeah, something like that. That's why you have to go
up
2
north.
foot.
It's like 48 inches, so it's way under the ground and it's super, like, cold. Like, if you let the water run, it'll get really cold. But here, even
that was one of the first things we noticed when we moved from Florida. There's actually cold water here in Florida.
It's all warm.
It's just kind of lukewarm water.
Wow.
And then you get up here, and I remember trying to hose myself off, like, working in the yard. And I'm like, good gracious, man, that's some cold water.
Once you get that hot water out of the hose, then it's cold.
So it's
yeah, but you got to watch that.
You got to try that cold shower, man.
Too cold water. If you're outside and you're hot, you can put yourself in a shock.
All your organs shut down.
You're talking about burning a sunburn.
I know, it can't be any worse than that.
What are you...
No,
the logic that you have.
Yeah, but that's using hot water.
I don't think your hose is that cold.
Water.
It's like 60 degrees,
I had an opportunity to go speak with a gentleman in the hospital. We were talking about carrying on a witness and trying to, be the hands and feet of Jesus a little bit more, getting outside of comfort zones. I tell you, that put me outside of my comfort zone.
I can't think of anything that I would rather not do than go to a hospital and talk to some, like...
Oh, really?
It's awful. And I understand that people can do it and are good at it, if you will. But, I mean, I'll do it, and I've done it before, but I hate it. Yeah. I don't know.
Is it too depressing, or...
I just hate hospitals and the whole... Like, I overthink it to the point where, am I saying the right thing and I'm not being led by the Spirit and I'm stepping all over everything? Yeah. And that's my problem. But
my fear is always that it's going to be taken as, like, either you're scaring them to death because, it's like the priest coming in right before you die, final rites kind of thing. Like, you don't want to scare grandma to death. She's just in there because she, stubbed her toe and, like, well, can I pray with you just in case? And you're like, what's the matter? You don't want to do that.
What did the doctor say?
But at the same time, I mean, it just seems like the perfect opportunity.
Yeah,
it really is.
You're faced with a reality that's uncomfortable, and
that's the reason why I chose to actually do that. But it's like you're afraid that it's going to be overreaction, or not taking the good way. But I don't know. It was just definitely out of the comfort zone for a little bit. But the testimony was good. I guess he professed that he knew the Lord, so I hope that it was an accurate.
So was he sometimes I think there's a fear to talk to somebody that does claim that they know the Lord, because then they're almost like offended, like, hey, I don't,
Are you questioning my salvation?
You're preaching to the choir. Yeah, right. So was there any sense of that? Like, was he offended that you would even?
No, I don't think he was offended, but I just I'm not quite sure how but he was like in and out anyhow, so it's kind of hard to keep the conversation going. And then you feel like, well, am I not saying the right stuff because it's not keeping him?
That's where, like, there's so many, you can go in there and like talk yourself out of things, or it just is just stay on point and do, I don't know, the witnesses, I don't know.
Yeah, and I felt bad too, because as soon as I got there, they were moving him from like the one room he was in to another floor, so he went through all of that, and then he was getting set up by there, and then the hospice people came in and was trying to set up stuff.
For him? Or
yeah.
No? Oh.
Yeah, he was supposed to be going home yesterday.
Well, hospice, isn't that technically? I thought that was always like kind of the end of things.
Last resort, right?
Yeah. So he is.
Yeah, he's going home with hospice. So it's
wow. So it's near.
And that's why they wanted someone to come in and talk with him and stuff like that. But still, it just makes you feel like you either, I don't know. It's just an awkward position to be in.
I don't think you're going to regret it.
No,
you won't.
Even if it went poorly, I think just to be able to say, "Hey, listen, I tried." Even if you fall flat on your face. I mean, and I don't think that.
Well, we've got to pray with him and the family and the nurse that was there. She wanted to pray with us too.
So, I mean, that's like I guess win-win-win. Yeah.
Yep.
It's like the deacon, or I don't think he's a deacon anymore, but Gordon. Mm-hmm. That's what he does, is he'll go to the hospitals and like he'll have a schedule where he does that throughout the day, and to me it's draining to do that just one time, and to do it, like, I really admire.
He does it every day?
Yes.
Oh wow.
Now how does that work? Because I've thought about that too. Like I think I'd be. It's almost like shooting fish in a barrel at that point. I like the opportunity just to go in there and
talk with him
in a loving way. You know what I mean? But I wouldn't want to cold call either. I don't even know if they would allow you to, like, just go room to room and just say, hi, I'm volunteering. I just thought I'd.
Typically,
can we talk?
For what he does, they're members of the church.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what I was wondering. It must be like people that.
And they'll compile a list, and then he'll make like some kind of plan where he'll hit this hospital or whatever. And
that's what I used to have a friend. Well, I still have the friend.
I used to have friends.
I had a friend once.
Well, his name was Jeremy, and he and I used to go. This is where the used to comes in. We used to go to a nursing home on like Sunday afternoons and go around and pray with. And we didn't have a list or nothing. We would just go to the rooms and just ask them if they felt comfortable, if they wanted to pray, if they had anything for us to pray for, and if they said yes, if they wanted us to pray right then or something like that. But that was in a nursing home and not a hospital. They may have like differences there, but that was a cool experience too.
I've thought about doing that too, with my mom and my dad. But my mom stayed in an assisted living facility, different ones, for I don't know, the last few years at least of her life, and it's just breaks your heart to see all the different types of people. Most of them are elderly, but even some younger ones.
Oh yeah,
they're a lot of them are emotionally and mentally kind of unstable too. There's a lot of screaming and yelling, and the nurses are like, oh well, that's just Robert, that's what he does, and it's just heartbreaking. It's almost like walking into, it feels like hell on earth, weeping and gnashing of teeth kind of thing. You walk in there and it smells
when you go
a certain way,
like more frequently. You'll start noticing the ones that they don't have anybody coming.
Oh, it's
and all that kind of stuff.
Nobody. I'm telling you, every time I would go, and this was more than one facility, we'd go in and we'd sign in, and the last name on it was my name from the other day for the guest log.
Nobody else is coming at all.
No.
Well, Ecclesiastes 7, chapter 7, verse 2, our man Solomon says, it's better to go to a house of mourning than to go to a house of feasting, for death is the destiny of everyone, and the living should take this to heart. And it really opens your eyes. We're all going to die, and I think maybe that's why I struggle so much with it. But
yeah, you don't walk out of there with a smile on your face or a grin on your face.
You're taking on a lot of weight, and that's the whole the whole point of going and doing something like that. And it's like
But
it'll stick with you.
And the purpose is to go there and hopefully help ease their burdens and share their weight. That's, I guess, the whole deal. But that reminds me of, have you ever heard of a movie, The Secrets of Jonathan Sperry?
Is it a Christian movie?
Yes.
I'm sorry. I've never seen it.
Let me talk to the Christian crowd over.
No, I haven't. I don't.
No,
think
but
I've
that
seen it.
he brings up that because he brings the boys to a graveyard in that movie, and they ask, "Why are we meeting here?" and all that, and then he talks about how it's better to keep your focus or mentality that this is the destiny of everybody, and it just made me think of that. But
I'd much rather be distracted
distracted.
by everything else.
Consumerism.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
consumerism. It's so much better. It's easier.
Take
Well,
the-
I mean,
take the mark of
that's the
beast.
problem. I think is that I've toyed with the idea for years. That I would like to go to an old folks' home. That's probably not a very PR way to say it.
To live.
Poor boy. Come on.
Hey, where y'all old people hanging
We've
out?
got like 2 listeners, and now we
I
only
know.
got 1.
I hope they're not old.
No, the one that we just lost probably was.
Yeah, well, maybe that was old age. I was like, but you know what I mean? Like I've always, I like old people. When I see, especially now that my grandma's gone and my mom and dad are gone, there was a YouTube video of I can't remember, my brother sent it to me or I sent it to my brother, and we both agreed that we wanted to adopt that old lady. She's just this little old Japanese lady, and we're like, oh my goodness, she's so cute. I just want to pinch her cheeks. And when I see old people, that's kind of how I am. I just want to give them a hug, And so I feel drawn to them, not in a weird way, But you know what I mean? Like you feel for them because
Well, I've
you
actually
see your mom in them, you see your dad,
right.
in them, you see
There's
your
somebody's
grandparent. Yeah.
something, and it should affect us a little bit more. And Proverbs talks about that, how gray hair symbolizes something, and I think that we as a society just kind of lock them away and kind of, we don't want you in our face. You're in the back of our mind, on the back burner. I've had that thought too, where I'd like to take my guitar and maybe go and take my boys and sing songs and do stuff like. And I think you've done that before.
Yeah, we used to go to. At one time, it was 3 different nursing homes, but then it was down to 2. But then when my dad had that heart surgery, that cardiac surgery, that ministry had to be set to the side because he was the one actually leading it. But we used to go in there all the time and sing songs and have a little message with them and pray with them. It was every Tuesday.
But now you podcast, which is way more important.
Oh yeah, just like mud run's more important than your mission trip.
This guy here.
Are they open to that though? Like if I were to go to like
Absolutely.
a random
I think
assisted
absolutely
living
would
and
be.
just said, hey, I'm a Christian. Just to be honest, I'm a Christian and I'm looking to spread the gospel.
Nursing homes are
They're not going to say,
always open for it.
sir, that's
You'd be surprised about how many people
tacky.
already take up other evenings. When we were doing it, there was probably 3 or maybe sometimes even 4 other nights during the week that people were coming out like that.
Oh, really?
So no, they're always open for that because the older generation, especially, that has been or had been part of life. So they're always open for that because it keeps them moving and active and having something or some place to go rather than just sitting in their room. So it's always good.
Maybe I'll do that.
Ironically, they're building a new facility like that right next to our school.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I think that might be something that I'm going to look into once it opens up.
Our school actually takes a field trip. I don't know if they still do it, and I just always thought it was funny because coming from Florida, the kids would take a field trip to Disney or Universal, and then up here it's like we're going to take a field trip to the retirement community. And I'm like,
wow,
what's the gift shop like
Really?
there? Kind of weird. Yeah, and I don't know what. Maybe they would just go and sing or something like that. I don't know.
That's probably what it is. To
Yeah.
probably play games with them.
Yeah.
just interact on any
Play
social
cards.
level. I'd love to take my boys up there, but they're at a stage in their lives where they're not very social. I can't get them to talk to their grandparents.
Well, exactly. Yeah, when my boys
would.
would go to visit my mom, it would just be like, they'd,
Yeah.
okay, kiss grandma, give her a hug, and like,
But-
they didn't
but-
know what to do.
They love children. Like
Yes, they
everybody
do.
loves children, and it would just warms their heart to see if they would interact. But
Right.
I got to figure that part
Well,
out. yet.
not just the interaction. It does wonders just for them to see children.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even if they won't, even if your son or daughter won't have nothing to do with them, and they stay behind your leg or whatever, it cheers them up just to see
My
little
mom,
kids.
I can believe that because my mom would just, say, "Oh, Jeff, she's surrounded by death all day long.
Mm-hmm.
It's just nothing but old people that are on their way out." And yeah, to see like a 6-year-old kid walk in the door that's glowing, full of life.
Yep.
It's kind of like having
So
a
I would
little
bring
reminder.
I would bring my whole family when we went, right, every Tuesday, and for a while they wouldn't do anything but try to sit right there with you, and eventually they'll I guess they'll pick their favorites or whatever, but they'll start opening up because it's the consistency that gets the kids to open up, but it's just them being there that allows the older generation to open up. But awesome stuff. Hopefully that works out.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm looking forward to it.
Can I do my intro now?
Oh my goodness! Did you start the timer?
No, I haven't started my
And
timer
You need
yet.
to start
go.
it.
I'll start it in just a minute.
What kind of time frame are we on anyway?
Several minutes.
Says the guy that has the same logic to burn a sunburn.
No.
No, it actually does help.
gasoline on
it and
just light it up. It'll feel so much better.
Fight fire with fire.
That's actually the mentality that we're using with that, but not real fire. But anyhow,
Does that work with everything? Like,
Huh?
oh, I have such a headache, and so you smash your head against the wall.
it does work with heartburn.
Like you eat
Vinegar.
a taco.
You put acid or like acidic, like a vinegar. You take a tablespoon, and it actually will help you even train your body to do away with the heartburn sensations.
You're one of those mystical healers.
Ooh.
How's your chakra?
But fire, huh?
How's your chakra? Is that how you say it?
Your kid comes in bleeding, and you're like, "You need a pickle."
You know what to help with that? A leech.
Crack open a pickle, you'll be fine. The diller, the better.
Here, rub this stone. Rub this stone right here.
Yes. Anyhow.
There's our other listener.
Hello and welcome to the Word Lover Podcast, a place where you can bring religion and reality together by discussing what really matters in our daily lives. I'm your host, James Beasley, here with
Josh.
and
Josh.
Josh and
Jeff the pool boy.
Yep, with Josh and Jeff. And this is what I had wrote down before. I'm going to read it. So, indispensable assets in the ministry to provide you, the listener.
Can you say that word? Is that not? This is like a family podcast.
What did you just say?
I think you said
Assets.
What you? Not twice in one podcast.
Okay, now the listener with a platform to have your voice, your concerns and questions heard. So now back to our regular routine. So what kind of time are we setting?
6 minutes.
6 minutes per section.
6.5 minutes.
No, 6 minutes and 35 seconds.
Is that per like verse?
No. I don't care.
No, I was last time I was going with 30 minutes
Per verse?
Perverse.
per section.
First he says the A word. Now you're saying perverse.
Where is this show going?
Golly.
No, I was doing 30 minutes like for the small talk intro, and then I did 30 minutes. Not that we actually set the whole time, but for like Proverbs, and then the same thing for. So roughly, run about 30 minutes.
How many minutes do we get for rabbit trails?
No.
That's when it goes on pause.
Yeah.
I am.
Hopefully, they won't take long.
I'm just old, and I need my rest. So we can't do it till midnight like James would like.
No, just 11:30, so I have time to get home before 1.
You're out of your mind.
Are we starting with an article?
Yeah, we can run through an article real quick, since nobody believes me about fighting fire with fire.
Is there an article about fire with fire?
Well, we sort of fight the fires of hell
What?
with God, who says he's a consuming fire.
All-consuming fire.
Yeah, so fire with fire. No? I guess you don't like that.
I like that. All right, moving on.
Moving on.
What article did you want to go with?
Which article did you read?
I didn't really read any of them, I don't think. Again, I didn't get them till today. And
Yeah, some of them were just today. I was reading through Christianity Today. So I get their subscription in email, so I just skim through some of their stuff once in a while.
The article about it says the BBC and the Tower of Babel. Yeah. When I read that one, there was a line that kind of stood out to me just because it was kind of timely. It said kind of the gist of the article, right, was that the modern day Tower of Babel, they used the term chronological snobbery. It says, he shows how the Tower of Babel remains a pattern for human rebellion against God. Chronological snobbery, the latest is the greatest, etc., can blind us to insights from previous generations. I shared that video clip with you guys where it was from the Unbelievable podcast, or the Big Conversation, or whatever it was, and this evolutionist kind of proposing that we need almost like a form of religion. I don't know if I can't remember if he used that term or not, but
he didn't use the term religion.
But
he's saying we had to change the way that we think about it, or he was pretty much pointing to that fact that we need a new religion.
We need ethics in evolution.
Yes,
because I guess minus ethics, we're just going to kill ourselves off. And so he's dancing around, and I think the host, James Brierley, is that his name? Or whoever he was talking to was saying, you sound like you're proposing a religion. And anyway, so he said something. The evolutionist guy said something like, we need something because there's just nothing. We don't have any tools to deal with where we're going as a species. And I'm thinking, what are you talking about? Like, we have this is exactly what the Bible talks about.
Yep.
Is how to survive as a human race.
That's what religion provides for us.
How to thrive as a human race, right? And here he is, like, gee, if there was just some way we could make sense of reality and some way to, to guide us.
He was saying there was no real, like, study or way to approach the way humanity is so religious in the evolutionary scheme, or as it is now.
He was talking a lot about utilitarianism, right? Or is that a different one? He said that he liked what religion caused, like the effects of it, but he didn't want religion. He didn't want religion, and I don't know that you can really do that.
It was just when he made that statement, something about we have no, I don't know what the phrase was. We have no tool, or we're not equipped with what we need to kind of take us, to the next step of evolution. And I'm like, but that's exactly what this article from talking about the Tower of Babel, this whole chronological snobbery, this idea that whatever's happened before us is old news. We need something new.
We're so far more advanced than what they used to be.
And I'm like, good grief, this is exactly what the Bible was designed to do. God is trying to give us an instruction manual on how to live in proper relationship with one another. And he seems completely ignorant of it. I'm like, have you not heard of this thing?
That old adage is, you forget the past, you'll be doomed to repeat it. I mean, we see that so frequently today. People think that. I think it was actually a post that we found on. I think it was Facebook or somewhere, but it was a young lady in Florida, I think. But it was speaking about her generation being so out of touch with how blessed and privileged we really are, that they're being taught today that they've never really seen privilege. And it's like the generation coming up behind us are being like brainwashed into, I guess you could say, anti-capitalism. And it's just it's scary because they don't see or learn from all this stuff that happened in the past, all the wars and all the changes and stuff that we've gone through as a nation, or the world really. And if we forget our past, we're going to be throwing ourselves right back into those same positions of being taken advantage of, or worse.
Well, you've never done the privilege training like Pool Boy over there, so you don't.
Yeah, I should probably maybe put together like a manual that we could study. Like,
really?
Yeah. Because I think all of us, being white and male, should walk out of this room right now with their heads hanging low.
There's not really much we can add to the
low? Do
discussion.
they waddle to and fro?
So yeah,
What?
I don't know. When I read that article, I thought that was interesting. What else did we read?
I like.
Was.
Do you want to visit the Lisa Gungor thing, or are you not?
Oh
you
man,
wanna
I was
touch
trying to
that?
think of what. Yeah, the last time we saw each other, it was just like amazing timing. You know, I told you guys about this song that really spoke to me.
Yes.
And the lyrics were just so powerful, and you know, it talks about the mountains bow down to you, the trees clap their hands for you, just absolutely beautiful. And there's several other songs by them that I like too. Then like the very next day, there's this, you know, unbelievable podcast again where it's Lisa Gungor talking to somebody from Chloe Girl, and man, it just comes out within a couple minutes of the podcast. I'm like, oh my gosh, this woman that, you know, I was so excited about the lyrics of this song. She's like a new age, you know, guru kind of like,
her
you know,
husband's Buddhist /
apparently he was an atheist at one point, and she
Yeah.
herself said that in the conversation, she said that she had one day of being an atheist and realized that she couldn't embrace it, and that her husband's no longer an atheist. But when they asked her, okay, well, what are your beliefs? She couldn't even articulate. You know, I mean, you've spent your career composing songs in theory that are biblical, right? And then when they say, you know, well, what do you think of, you know, Jesus? Well, you know, he's, you know, when he says, I am, man, I feel it. You know, we are. Like, what? What do you think?
That's the Eastern
We are.
Buddhism coming out.
But so what I want
He's
to ask,
claiming to be God, and then she's basically spinning it and saying, you know, wow, it was so simple. I am. Yes, I am. I, Lisa, am. I'm like, were you listening to anything the Bible had to say? I'm like, it was mind-boggling that, you know, you could have somebody that was writing these beautiful, and I was listening to him from my worldview, but then now that I'm listening to the song from her worldview, that new agey kind of worldview where it's like, you know, the trees clap their hands for you, and you know, like the trees are alive, the trees are spiritual.
God is.
I'm like,
God,
oh,
it's
great.
the same old twist on God is all and in all.
but that's the
Panentheism.
question I was going to ask you now. So the song completely lost all of its meaning because of that.
It, you know, yeah, it's like when you, not that I like put them at the top of the list of, you know, groups that speak to me or whatever. You know, I don't really hero worship, I hope. But you know, when they say you shouldn't meet your hero or whatever, you know.
Yeah,
It's true.
never meet your hero. You never like him again.
Yeah, and so, like I said, I wouldn't, you know, say that, you know, they're my hero or anything like that. However, yeah, I mean, it was just so timely because I was, for that week, you know, I would listen to that song almost on repeat because it was just so powerful to me. And then 2 seconds later, I find out that she's completely off base, and it just takes the joy out of it for me because even if I listen to it from my worldview, and you know, there's a debate there. Can you listen to it from your worldview and it's okay? Or now that I know that she's writing it from a blind to Jesus kind of perspective,
See, that's one of those
is it
things.
a non-starter? Do you just turn it off?
It's a great discussion.
Yeah.
But see, that's where I think you can listen to stuff through your worldview, but it's almost nearly impossible to separate, especially if you know the worldview they've written it from. It's impossible to separate that out of it as well, because just by accepting it as a worship song, you're also accepting them as a worship leader or the songwriter, and pointing them in that direction as well, saying, "No, this is okay."
If you magnify any person for any reason, you can find some
Right.
kind of dirt, some kind of theological chink in their armor.
Not like that kind of chink.
Well, I mean, if you look at the lyrics of the song, do they point to God? Do they
Well, that's the
worship
thing.
God?
From my perspective, yes.
That's what I'm talking
From her
about.
perspective, she apparently was writing it like, you know, Mother Nature is holy kind of thing. You know, the trees bow down to you. That, you know, then it's like.
But you're also opening up that false teaching to be promoted as well, because she's writing that from that mindset, from that worldview. So you accepting that, even if you're listening to it from your worldview, you're saying that, oh, both paths can lead the same place, to
Well,
the
and that's
same
what
worship.
she even said, like, you
I
know,
didn't
that she
say
came to
that.
this
No,
point.
it's like silence is acceptance.
What does that mean? It doesn't.
Like, you're saying that you're validating her worldview
Yes.
by listening to it.
You're validating it by promoting it as a worship song now.
Right.
Because
Well, I'm not saying that it needs to be drugged to the front of the stage during church and we actually sing it, but if it helps you to understand the wonder of God, like I mean, when you're talking, the way that you described that song really got me to thinking because I love art and I love music and that kind of stuff, and that's when I asked you about the liturgist because the Science Mike is the one guy that he does some of the spoken word for. I'm like, but then you sent that article next. And to me, that doesn't bother me.
So like who's Science Mike? I saw that. But
he was on Unbelievable too, and he did a big long show about finding God in the waves.
It was more than one,
and
I think it was a 2-parter at least.
He's a deconstructionist and all that stuff, where he breaks everything down and kind of builds it up in his own way, and that's why whenever you said that this song is really great, I was just like But I think, I mean, I don't have a problem with it. It's just like we were talking about people saying Allah, right? For us, that's like taboo, but that's God. That is God for Coptic Christians. So it's all.
Well, I would say that's a stretch of comparing what we're talking about the song to the term
right?
Allah, because that is not an Islamic term. Islam borrowed the term and incorporated it as their God's name. Allah precedes that centuries before, and it was used to reference to God before Islam took over.
I mean, technically they talk about Jesus too, but they're just wrong on him,
Yeah, even though they do say that he can create from nothing. That he created doves out of dirt in the Quran, and even in the Quran, only God can create things from nothing.
I think, that's what I was talking about before too, where you can see if you have. God doesn't ever take a break. Like when you're listening to music or you're watching a movie, he's right there with you. And that you look at things through that lens. Like you look at things from a Christian perspective. Some things are good, some things are bad, but you're always.
What if you're listening to a song that is clearly, inappropriate? Say your kid is, singing a song from pop, radio, and they, being innocent, they think, especially from a Christian's perspective, you hear a love song and you might think, oh, they're singing to God. No, sweetie, that's not what they're singing.
Well,
like
let's on Christian radio, you can.
They're
singing to God, but if you don't, if you listen to it, take God out of the picture.
Oh, absolutely.
No, that sounds
like
there's a lot.
There's a lot of songs where, like, if you played it on pop radio, they would think, oh, it's just another love song for whatever. But my question is, like, let's say that your kid is singing an obscene song that anybody with a worldly understanding of what's going on and whatever would know that, but your kid, being innocent and didn't know better, they're singing it thinking that they're singing a praise song. Would you allow that and say, well, hey, they're singing it like a praise song? Like, well, baby, you don't understand what those words mean.
It'd be discretion, but so here's a good example. Sam likes Deadpool. My oldest boy, he's 7 years old. He loves Deadpool. He's not seen the movie. He's not read the comic. He's not seen any. He has played a video game, and that character was in it. It's a Lego video game, mind you. There's no maturity rating or anything like that. It's just cute, funny. It's Deadpool. Mm-hmm. He got me a Deadpool shirt for Father's Day, and I wear that thing with pride. And it's not because I love Deadpool and this and that. It's because he picked it out, and it means something different to me and him than it does to the world. If somebody wants to ask me about it, I'm all excited to talk to him about it and say why. But it changes the meaning of things once you understand whatever. Like you can look at it and say this or that, but I don't know. There's so much more.
I think there's
than
a
just
distinction.
writing it off.
Yeah, but there's also a distinction that it was like songs that aren't like created from a completely different worldview. If somebody presents it to you and you listen to it, it's your takeaway however you do it. But there's a difference in you choosing yourself to use that as worship. Because actually, that's like that song that you were talking about. Knowing that worldview, I don't think all paths can lead to worship of God, and they shouldn't. But if they play it, then yeah, you can take from that and a redeeming value. But it's not something like I would play it's not a choice that I would
and
make.
there are warnings in the Bible where it's like, be careful. Like,
Well,
and
like,
I'm bad at quoting, but like I feel like there's more than one time where it's like, kind of a warning to us Christians, us believers, be careful, because not everything that sounds like it's from God is from God,
Oh yeah, and he also says, do not worship me in the way that the world worships their gods around them. So if they present something, then that's how they see God and worship. That's fine and well for them presenting it, and if they present it, I can do a takeaway and redeeming, saying, well, this is what makes me feel, and this is how I see God in that. But that's not my choice of song. So if you ask me to present a song, I would choose a different song.
Well, I mean, there's just endless ways that could, be carried out.
Yeah,
like,
you could do it many different. I
like
mean,
the
what
Day
if
of
you
the Dead. I like that little skull. The Dia de los Muertos skull looking thing.
Yeah.
Real cool looking. And some of the photography, like you see these photographers that do these amazing jobs, like, with the makeup and the costumes and stuff. And I'm like, I can see artistically awesome, but knowing what it represents, I mean, it's just like.
Well, see, there's another question from other. Sarah went to the store, and my wife got on me for it, but I still let her. Got it.
Done. Good
Yeah,
it.
done. Got it.
Done good it.
But it was a like one of these elaborate, just pictures that you had to color all the things in.
Mm-hmm.
But it was nothing but the Day of the Dead skulls and all sorts of stuff all throughout it. And it's like, but she loves coloring all that stuff and loves that picture too. Just like you said, you like the way all that stuff looks. So I let her get it because to her, it's nothing. Just like you said, the Deadpool is nothing to your son. But it's not that I'm teaching her about the Day of the Dead. She's just using it as a coloring book.
I can see how some people would be hesitant, because it's like, well, is that not a gateway to like you can see how it would maybe possibly kind of become more than that, like where as she grows older and she appreciates that and she sees it, oh, let me explore that. Or like we watched the movie, what's the Pixar Day of the Dead one?
There's like
Coco.
There's Coco, and then there's like two or three of them cartoon movies.
Well, the one I saw was Coco, and it beautifully done. I mean, like
it was well done.
The cinematography just absolutely gorgeous.
It was a good story,
the entire
too.
And it was a good story, but and Pixar is known for making these amazing stories. But from that Christian worldview, the whole time I'm just watching it, kind of like just grossed out, but just like this kind of sad feeling. An entire movie about a lie. A spiritual lie.
But the problem is, well, not a problem, but the good thing is that that it's a lie.
Yeah.
And that's it. Like you're not, you're on your toes and you're watching it through that lens. Like,
but just it just takes it takes the joy out of it, and it should. To just think that this for millions of people around the world isn't just a movie. This is like. Imagine like if we watch, what's the cartoon, the Moses cartoon, Prince of Egypt?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we watch it and we might, find spiritual meaning and joy in it and whatever. And then, but to think that there's millions of people watching it and thinking it's just another cartoon.
Yeah.
That's sad too. That they're like, hey, no, this is reality.
A lot of those cartoons we'll watch, and then the kids will point out certain things, and I'll point out. Like the way the main character is treating their friends or upholding like their promises or whatever, like the things that are good qualities within it. Because if you say that about the Coco movie, just name one Disney or Pixar movie that isn't. Well, you might can name a Pixar like Pets, but name one almost Disney cartoon movie with princesses or whatever that doesn't at least skirt the line of witchcraft and sorcery. Most of them are,
Wall-E.
Wow.
But then you also with that one, it's
Incredible.
artificial intelligence that actually can have feelings and attachments when
Ratatouille.
that really isn't really true either. Ratatouille.
Ratatouille is a Pixar movie, and there's no magic.
Well, that's why I said Pixar. You can do that. I'm talking about. Then I clarified Walt Disney princess
the Sword
movie.
in the Stone.
Cars.
Disney Sword in the Stone. Exactly.
Well,
you know what I'm getting at with that.
You don't believe in history, King Arthur? Come on, man.
Whose history? Oh my goodness! But it's like the Princess and the Frog was probably one of the darkest witchcraft princess movies I would say that they have.
But the firefly was cute.
Yes.
Oh my God.
It's cute.
I
No,
can't
it was
remember.
good though. It had good
Yeah.
a good storyline. And
Well, and
all
I mean
of them.
that's my problem with all of pop culture and the media. I'm scared to death of it all. I'm leery of it all. It's just.
But that's no way to live, though, either.
Well, I mean, I'd rather be on high alert, knowing that Satan is after my soul
but
and
but
after my kids' souls and after the. I mean, you know,
I'm not saying that I'm not on high. I'm not on alert. Like I'm wise to that whole idea, but not to the point where it ruins. Like God, like
If you were trick or treating in a drug infested neighborhood where you knew that, like, you know, people
Razor
were trying to
blades and
slip you
needles.
stuff, you just be like, you know what?
well, that's your
I'm
first.
just
That's
not
where,
going to do it.
where do you draw the line then? Because you're
I know,
trick or
that's the
treating.
problem. It's like,
you're trick or
where?
treating, and that's Halloween is
Yeah.
a pagan
Well, no,
holiday.
I know,
I mean, you can.
yeah.
What I'm saying is, you can draw that line as far back as you want to the point where you're so insulated that you have nothing to do with the culture, and that it doesn't do anybody any good. Here comes James.
No, keep going. I have to find it first.
Is it in James?
Like I said, for me, I feel like it's important to err on the side of what would it be like in the garden. There would be no Halloween in the garden.
Well, they were innocent, so they didn't know any
and that's
different.
the thing. So it's like, but just knowing, you know, we were talking about it the other day. Shelly said she was at the she was at the DMV. Our middle son was getting his license, his learner's permit, and there was this girl there that was in tears because she failed. And there was an older guy that was trying to console her that walked over and said, "Hey, here, I'll show you the website that, you know, helped me. You know, when I came to this country, I'd been gone for 20 years and I had to take my license again and I failed it, but it's okay." So he's like, whatever. And I said, and my wife was, you know, kind of like, you know, touched. She's like, "Wow, this stranger was just really genuinely kind to this girl." And I said, or he was like, you know, hitting on a 16-year-old girl.
Yeah.
And my wife is like, "Jeff," and I said, "Okay,
Way to throw it in the gutter.
I know." And I said, well, here's my question: was it a guy? She's like, "Yeah." I said, "All right."
What?
You know what I'm saying? Like, unfortunately, that
Was it a guy? I won't get into it.
But you know what I mean? Like, unfortunately,
It's a stat that I actually have picked out for the book.
I say it jokingly, but knowing that unfortunately could very well be part of it. And it's the same thing with the world, you know, with the songs and the TV shows and the games and the movies and this and then that. It's just, I know better.
No.
I know
I got my verse now.
that it's none of that was designed to bring me closer to God. It's designed to bring me closer to, you know, we talked about in that one article talking about consumerism, maybe possibly, you know,
It
in
was
some
bringing
people's
up
views,
the idea
it
that
may be the mark of the beast,
well,
yeah.
not
Or world.
Antichrist,
right? The Antichrist,
a different perspective on
because
that.
it's such a powerful but subtle way to draw people's attention away from God and just numb them to the reality of who God is. Well, but that's all of reality. That's all of
But
every movie, every TV show, everything you watch is pretty much designed to just numb you and convince you that there is no God, or just laugh yourself straight to hell.
or like the Secrets of Jonathan Sperry.
I still haven't seen that one.
That doesn't do that. But anyhow, I like this. I love this verse in Ecclesiastes because the things that we're talking about right now, you know, we have views that saying you can accept certain things and not. You can do, you know, where do you draw the line? And this is describing from Scripture where to draw the line, and not that it's going to tell you where to draw the line, but you know. But anyhow,
All right, you've built it up quite a bit. You've been looking for it for 10 minutes.
I know. Ecclesiastes chapter 7, starting in verse 15. We're going to read through 18. Is in this meaningless life of mine, I have seen both of these: a righteous man perishing in his righteousness, and a wicked man living long in his wickedness. Do not be over righteous, neither be over wise. Why destroy yourself? Do not be over wicked, and do not be a fool. Why die before your time? It is good to grasp the one and not let go of the other. The man who fears God will avoid all extremes.
So it's good to be in the middle.
I mean, sometimes you read, like, there was something I can't remember in Proverbs that we just read for this chapter 24, where man, if you didn't know better, I mean, I should probably read the historical context of it, or maybe like some other translations, because like that one right there is like, don't be too righteous, like, or what was the term? Is that what?
Don't be over righteous.
Over righteous. Now I can see like the Pharisees, where they thought that it was going to get them saved. You know, that's a dangerous kind of road to go down too.
And you can see it like this way by considering like everything that unless it's directly speaking about God or Jesus, that's sin, taboo. That's over righteous. Like you're too cautious. Over wicked in here is not speaking of sin. It's actually talking about, like folly or joking around and stuff like that. But it's like you need to have like the old saying, all work and no play. What makes Jack a dull boy or whatever.
Yeah, it's always James in my head.
That's
James
from The Shining with Jack Nicholson.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, where he's typing away for like weeks on end, working on his novel, and then she goes to see, what has he been typing? And it's that, just again and again and again and again.
Oh, wow.
And she realizes, oh my gosh, he's lost his mind.
He's crazy.
Run for your life.
But still, you can't be all about the business. You can't be all about like righteousness, because we know from Scripture that we can't be righteous in and of ourselves, but we still have to try to pursue that. Ooh.
You done killed it.
You just took a life.
He was too evil.
He was too. But that one right there, it tries to. That's why, sometimes I almost question myself. Am I playing double standards and all that? Because there's certain things, like even like holidays that I'll allow my family to do, and there's certain things in that holiday that we won't. But it's sort of like trying to find a balance. This is like we have this big discussion like Christmas time about Santa Claus,
right?
And we don't teach that or promote that, but we have Christmas trees,
right?
And then you have the crowd like, oh no, Jeremiah, it says this. Well, no, I'm not carving an idol out of it. We're not bowing down to it.
Do you let your kids get wasted on eggnog? Is that okay?
Do you say Xmas?
I don't see a problem with that, but no, I say Christmas.
Wasn't Xmas like X was like the Cairo? The key. Or whatever, yeah.
It's the key in Christ.
Like, yeah.
The key.
So then there you go.
It's the first letter of Christ in Greek. Is the X. Well, I mean, it's not an X.
Well, and here's
we say
like
X.
Pop culture likes to do this. They like to find or invent characters that are like, let's put a Christian character in our whatever.
Yes.
Like Shelley used to watch Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and anytime there was a Christian character on that show, it was some religious zealot that turned out to be evil.
Yes.
So I can see at least pop culture would paint anybody that is grounded in the Word of God. Oh, well, they're so grounded, they're like,
But
and that's sad.
like,
most of the time you see that
Hitler
they're depicted
style,
as bad, or dumb.
You sent out a text asking if we've seen Spider-Man. I haven't seen it yet.
I sent that.
Oh, you sent that, and you said it was good.
The new one.
Yeah.
Yes.
But so, how do you land with all that stuff? Is that permissible?
Make believe.
Right, but it's good stuff, right? I mean, it's written well. The characters you invest in.
Well, there's a lot of make-believe stuff that wouldn't be, I think. Like, 50 Shades of Grey is...
There's a lot of make-believe stuff that I don't allow, but when it comes to, like, the superheroes and those kind of movies and stuff, I don't teach my kids that they're real. Like, oh, my goodness, that he really exists. So, no, it's just make-believe. It's nothing more than...
He's not like Santa Claus.
Well, they are just like, but it's not that I'm teaching them that these are real things and they can expect that. No, this is make believe. It's okay to pretend and have a good time, but this isn't reality.
So James endorses Spider-Man, just so everybody knows.
Far From Home was a good movie.
See, I haven't seen it yet.
Hey, this is what happens. This is what happens in it.
This is your mic off.
This is the rabbit trails that I'm thinking of,
Yes.
because like there's so many things that like, well, what about this? I'll tell you one that kind of rubs me a little weird is our church, when they go on mission trips to Canada and stuff like that, they'll dress up in like Spider-Man costumes and stuff, and it draws a crowd, it gets the families all excited, and then I guess they somehow use that as an opportunity to kind of get them closer to like the table where they're handing out, Bibles and stuff like that. And I'm like, I just don't see Jesus and the disciples dressing up as Spider-Man and whatever Disney characters. It feels
no. Well, Jesus himself
sleazy.
dressed up as a mummy. Come on, guys,
like,
come on,
like,
really?
wait.
That was funnier than you acted.
I was.
He was horrified. He was waiting for the lightning to come down.
Wait for the punchline, but
like, no, but he didn't dress himself that way though.
true.
You know what I mean?
He was
like,
dead.
It seemed kind of like.
Now see, like dressing up like that,
sleazy,
if
like I don't know.
if you were just going out just to have a good time, to get kids to laugh or to play around, there shouldn't be nothing wrong with dressing up. But if the purpose is the gospel, that's not a segue to the gospel, because I mean, that's sort of like consumerism and the gospel. I don't know. I would have a little bit of a problem with that too, because you shouldn't need
well,
that.
like when
to
you were
preach the
saying, with,
gospel.
you know, knowing that lady's singing that song, knowing what her theology is, almost like kind of giving a thumbs up to it, even though I'm listening from my worldview. That's how I kind of feel about, you know, if the church is dressing up as Spider-Man and whatever,
But then,
and passing out gospel tracts, and I'm like, are you not, you know, or Minions or whatever? I'm like, you know, it's like, it seems kind of like you're at the very least watering down the gospel, because wait, it's not good enough, it's not powerful enough, you need Spider-Man to hand it out, you know?
Yeah,
but
Or it also seems kind of like,
preach it.
you know, kind of stupid. You know, it's like, I don't know. It's like your church is you know, supporting whatever movie.
the whole thing comes unraveled when you think about a modern day church service, like how much
web
money
that doesn't stick.
Yeah, like the audio equipment and the big screens and the lights and the smoke and the like. Can you see Jesus and the disciples
do you
doing that?
use
Any of
smoke?
that stuff? Huh?
You use smoke in your
Vapes.
services?
Yeah, vape.
Yeah, we're like one of those
CBD.
millennial churches.
Oh, wow.
Like they pass it around.
And we haven't we
Peace
have
pipe.
as long as it's the traditional one, like the old.
But can you
authentic
see
ones.
what I'm talking about though?
Well,
Like,
the church the last church, well, not the last church.
Jesus
when
fed
Shelly and
his
I got
church.
married, we were going to a Baptist church near UCF, and they had multiple services, and one service was the young what are they called, contemporary service, and
More like worship, like songs like that.
Yeah, it was like, it was very, you know, slick, and you know, the music was like, you know, worthy of, you know, on the radio kind of style stuff, and I mean, it just was so, it felt so like, you know, hip and cool that I just like, I can't do it anymore. Let's go across the
Fake?
street, yeah, or I don't. It seemed like
produced way too.
yeah. It's like,
Yeah.
you know, the music was too good. The lighting was, you know, it's like, that's not the point of all this. And that was even back when we didn't even have kids then. But it just seemed we're trying too hard. I guess maybe that's how I feel about, like, you know, like I said, do we need Spider-Man to hand out gospel messages? Is that the only, you know, way to make it palatable, or whatever the word is? You know? You got to somehow, like, you know, well, I don't know. Like, there's.
I think that'd be a perfect discussion.
All right,
to
we're
pick
talking
up.
about that next
Yeah,
time.
did we
Yes.
run out of time?
We're an hour in and we haven't touched Proverbs or the book.
This is the
Yes,
power of
that-
editing. We
That
just
will be
need to-
next
we just
week's
need to edit.
discussion topic. Is
What is it? Tell me right now.
Consumerism and the church,
Consumerism.
or something similar.
Like
to
if
that.
we're selling mugs with our church's logo on it.
Yeah.
Have we looked to see if there's a section in the book about that?
How far is too far? Like we've been talking about the whole time. Where do you draw the line?
Well, I mean, yeah.
But I mean, it needs to be discussed and talked about, because that I think a lot of people have those questions, because you have churches that have cafes in them, and then you have the churches that won't even let somebody have a CD at the front door.
And
when
like
they're
you were
singing
talking
there.
about, you know, back in the day, would Paul, you know, would he have been selling merchandise?
I think it's-
and-
I
Paul
think it-
did. They actually handed out his handkerchiefs that he wiped his sweat off his brow when he was sick.
Oh, there you go.
Well, that's what, like, there's.
Jesus fed people. He brought them into
Get
church
your
and
snot
fed them.
rags. Get your holy snot rags.
That just
said
sounds
before,
disgusting.
where Paul was, he was plugged into the culture enough to like recite different poets and different
Well,
philosophies.
he was using it as like an apologetics tool, though.
Right, but he's still using it.
Two lines
That's
out
what
of
I'm saying.
how many?
I don't think that
There's more than
necessarily
two.
he was like, you know.
I have a list of all the philosophers and everybody quoted.
Well,
and it's
some,
way more
some
than two. buddy.
speculated and not necessarily
Way more
knew.
than two.
Well, maybe 4.
No, there's at
Yeah.
least 6.
Uh,
All right, we need to.
yes. But we will continue on. Put a pin in that.
All right, so yes, where we
moving into Proverbs chapter 24. Right? Did you pick a verse out of that?
I did somewhere.
Did you send it out?
I didn't, because I wasn't sure. I didn't want to take anybody's verses, because every time I do that, James yells at me.
No, I don't mind you taking verses.
Do you mind if I pray?
Absolutely.
Hey, there you go.
Heavenly Father, we're grateful to be here tonight, just gathered and excited to go over your word, Lord. We pray that you give us your perspective, that we get out of the way, and that we can just be filled up. And I pray that this podcast can go out and work in somebody's life, Lord. And I pray that it's more than us just talking, Lord, that we act it out in our lives, with our families, and everybody that we run into. I pray that you're glorified. And I say this in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Amen. And I guess my proper response would be, no, I don't mind. Instead of yes.
Lay off my Bible.
All right, so who's
Chapter
got the
24.
first? Who's got the first one? Because
What is
I'm
yours?
the very last one.
What is yours?
I had picked 15, 11, 12, and 27.
Oh, wow.
But I really
Nobody
don't.
liked the first ones, huh?
Well, usually that's you, man. You're all over it.
Well, last week it was you.
Well, I learned my lesson.
Okay, and you had, well, I guess I would start with mine then, because mine are 10, 11, and 12. Did you have one of those?
I had 11, but we can discuss it together.
All right, sounds good. Well, those read from the NIV paper version. If you falter in times of trouble, how small is your strength? Rescue those being led away to death. Hold back those staggering towards slaughter. If you say, but we knew nothing about this, does not he who weighs the heart perceive it? Does not he who guards your life know it? Will he not repay each person according to what he has done? And I chose those because those stand out to me a lot, because it just brings into mind all of the the injustice that we see around us today. If it's as basic and simple as people who are hungry or needing, people, you have opportunities to serve in soup kitchens or pantries or whatever. People, they don't want to step out to that little bit. But then you also have these pregnancy centers out there that my wife is also involved in, but trying to get these ladies to change their minds about the direction they're heading for their children, and to choose life, and for me, that's the first thing that pops in my mind when it talks about people being led off to slaughter, because they have no say-so whatsoever in it. I mean, they're just being done away with. And then you have, which is still very prevalent, you have the sex trade, trafficking.
And I think that's a way bigger problem than people really realize.
It is huge, and we have three main cities up and down on our coast, right here, close by, and it's just scary to think that you can be walking down a supermarket or a mall in a crowded area, and your daughter goes missing. That's just a horrible thing to be even contemplating. But yet, so many people want to just pretend like all of these things aren't really reality around them, and as long as it's not touching home, it's easy to dismiss it. And I think that's one of these things that it calls it into question. And it says, will not he repay each one according to what he has done? One of the biggest things I think a lot of the church, we get comfortable in this idea that there's no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. And we confuse that with judgment. There's no condemnation, but God is still going to hold us accountable for the things that we say, the things that our motives behind it, and the things that we do, even while we're in Christ. And I think we have lost sight of that as a church, because there's no condemnation doesn't mean that God isn't going to hold us accountable for, because especially now, I think we talked about it in one of the previous podcasts about the name of the Lord, taking his name upon us, and then not trying to get out there and do all you can, because I think Micah 6:8 says, what is he required of you but to do justice, to love mercy, and to walk humbly before your Lord. And justice is a big thing that the church should be out forefront in these things, especially abortion, the sex trafficking, and even hunger.
And the first thing that popped in my head was Esther and how she sacrificed her life unknowing, like she could have died easily for her people.
She was willing to sacrifice her life. Yeah.
That is a remarkable thing to do. And then it made me think of Colin Kaepernick.
He ain't sacrificed nothing.
But hear me out though. You're talking about social justice stuff, and there's certainly that out there. I just love this guy. I love you, James.
Well, yes, there is that out there. And I think there's always a time and a place and a proper way of doing things. But
I knew that would get you going.
We're not chasing that rabbit.
Okay, good.
But that's why I had abortion, sex trafficking, starving, and one of the ones also I see depicted in this is the unsaved. You know, that's one group that, you know, people, a social injustice. To me, that is probably the worst injustice, because, you know, the devil has got, if you're not in Christ, the devil has blinded you in this world. And unless God comes in and removes those blinders, you're being led off to slaughter. And a lot of people don't even realize it. You know, like we talked about before, people think, I'm good enough. I don't really do anything wrong. You know, my good outweighs my bad. You know, a lot of people think that.
Well, we're talking about it too, about like me even doing the hospital gig, and I want to make excuses up, but I mean there's no wiggle room there. He's saying, if you know that there's an injustice there or there's people being slaughtered, that you should be there, and it just takes all the guesswork out of it.
Yeah.
Would you say that's a command?
A command right here? Mm-hmm. No, I wouldn't say there's a command in here. I say there's a caution, he's imploring with us, hey, you need to be thinking about what you're doing. He's not commanding you in this passage, but he's saying...
Well, he says rescue those being led away to death.
Yeah. Well...
Yeah. I don't know.
Well, but I'm going to go to Isaiah. Go to there real
when
quick.
it said unjustly sentenced to death, I guess I didn't take it to where, like you guys are talking about, the whole world. I mean, billions of people are marching off to hell, and you know, I'm sitting back and, you know, saying I'm disturbed by it, but am I going to my neighbors? Am I talking to anybody and everybody and just say, hey, you know, let me just tell you, I mean, if I've said this for years, if I truly lived it out the way, you know, I believe reality to be, that, you know, people are dying and going to hell. I mean, like, I'd be telling everybody. I'd be like, and if there was an atomic wave getting ready to sweep over the city, I'm like, guys, it's coming, you know, do something, shelter. Anything. I mean, but instead, you know, it's this reality. It's just so easy to kind of like dismiss it or put it off another day, or, oh man, I got to go to work.
And there's a good verse in James that touches on that.
Well, have at thee.
James on James. That's where
it says that anyone who knows the good that you should do and then don't do it, you're sinning. But in Isaiah 58, I'm going to read 3 verses there. He said, "Is not this the kind of fasting I have chosen, to loose the chains of injustice and untie the cords of the yoke, to set the oppressed free and break every yoke? Is it not to share your food with the hungry and to provide the poor wanderer with shelter? When you see the naked, to clothe them, and not to turn away from your own flesh and blood." You know, and because he was getting on them for, you know, fasting and having this form of godliness, but not really living it out truly. And, you know, those same things that Christ said, that, you know, when he comes, when did I see you clothed or naked or poor or hungry? And he says, it's when you take care of all these people I've put in your path. And I like that, because you see that thread throughout the Old Testament and in the New Testament about these things needing to be done if you are part of the church.
Very well done. Good
Your
job,
turn.
James. My turn. Where were we at here? Who was I? 15? 15 says, and I quote, no, not
you quote.
"Do not lurk like a thief near a house of the righteous. Do not plunder their dwelling place. For though the righteous fall 7 times, they rise again. But the wicked stumble and calamity strikes." And I guess that's a 16 but that's the whole thing makes sense. And it's just proof that in your head you think righteous and there's glory there and you're not going to be touched by anything and the prosperity gospel and all that. And you're gonna fall, and the difference is when you do fall, the reason that you get back up, that your eyes are, your focal point is Christ, and that's what helps you get up. While somebody else, like they're gonna go down, but they're not really gonna have a reason to get up, and I don't know, it just loses all its meaning. And I wrote a bunch of words that I can't read because I have chicken scratch.
And it's sort of like a believer or someone who has Christ in their life. There's a hope there that gives you a reason to keep pushing on. And outside of Christ, the world is, like I think Paul says it in Ephesians, like we were without God and without hope. We didn't have really something beyond the tangible world to live for, and that can be taken away. But
it's like it's one of them pull up your boots by your bootstraps type deals, right? So if you go back up to 10, it says, if you falter in a time of trouble, how small is your strength?
Yeah.
Like, and it's just that encouragement and the determination, right? That God gives you the ambition to get back up if you get knocked down 7 times. I think that's awesome.
Yeah. I also, just as a sidebar to that, I think that's where Peter was alluding to.
What do you mean?
In this verse right here, when it says, for though a righteous man falls 7 times, he rises again, but the wicked are brought down in calamity. He asked the Lord, how many times am I supposed to forgive my brother who sins against me? 7 times?
70.
He says 7 times because he left it there, because he was talking about, well, if you fall 7 times, you rise again, but then the wicked are brought down in calamity. And then the Lord says, no, it's 70 times 7. It's not an end to the way you want to be. You should be forgiven because, well, for one, you don't want God not forgiving you. And he ties that into that. But I think that might be an illusion that Paul, or the way Peter was perceiving this. But so nobody took the honey passage.
Yeah,
that's awesome though.
Wait,
not that no one took it, but it's an awesome passage.
What kind of logic is that again? Fire with fire. No, I mean that one is pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah, it's nice.
I think that we should go when we read the word, that we should be that excited and look forward to it that much.
And also that there's food out there that even the scripture says that it's good to eat just for the sake, because it's good to eat.
Mm-hmm. Amen to that.
All right, so I think I had also 17 and 18, and really just as a, well, I'll go ahead and read them. Do not gloat. Which ones did you have other than 15?
27.
Okay. You didn't have 17 or 18?
Go for it.
It's 28, 29 also go with this one, but it says, do not gloat when your enemy falls. When he stumbles, do not let your heart rejoice, or the Lord will see and disapprove and turn his wrath away from him.
That's the one where I was like, it almost sounds like it's, hey man, don't you want God to punish the guy? You're like, don't mess it up. Let God do his thing, and the guy will get punished. You know, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like validating one, but it's like, but it causes us all to have to take a step back, because it's so easy, just to want something bad to happen if they've done you wrong, or
that's to
hold a grudge, whatever.
You want that vengeance immediately, like you're gonna get it back. And like,
well, what was the verse Sunday that? Were you there Sunday?
I wasn't there Sunday.
There was a verse that came up, and it was something about basically show love and kindness and allow God to give his wrath.
Well, there's several passages that say that vengeance is mine, says the Lord, he will repay, and we're supposed to overcome evil by doing good.
Yeah, it was in the same verse. It was like, one part of the verse was saying, show love, be kind, be generous to whatever, and allow God to
leave room for God's wrath.
Yeah, and it's like, man, if you didn't know better, it's almost kind of like, hey, it's okay to serve your enemies and to love your enemies, because trust me, they're gonna get it. Well, then you're not really loving your enemies if the entire time you're thinking, oh yeah, here you go, come on to my house, have some dinner, it's gonna be great, because God's gonna give you something for dessert. You know what I mean? That's not love. It's, I don't know. It's like when you see passages like that, you have to wrestle with, like,
But this passage
maybe
right
God's
here, that's why
holiness,
the motive behind what we do, I think we need to take, because even if at the end when God comes and he does pour out his wrath, if you're waiting for that moment, then you're letting your heart, what does it say? When he stumbles, do not let your heart rejoice. Or he said, don't gloat in your enemy when your enemy falls. When that happens, if you're gloating, and if that's the moment you're waiting for, when he says that God's going to turn his wrath away from him,
is it implying that it's going to then come to you?
It doesn't say it's going to come to you. It's just that
you're
what
not
we're
gonna-
wanting so bad, what we're living for, isn't going to come to fruition because we're living for the wrong thing. Because if
as almost like a lesson to you. Not that God's showing mercy to them, but more like,
well, it's a mercy to him.
Oh, you want me to do this? Well, then I ain't going to do it.
I was like, yeah.
Is that what you want?
I think
no.
that would be something to think.
The guy, what's the
Like a
Geico guy with the dollar fishing pole?
Oh, yeah.
Well, I'm studying for next week's Sunday school class is Jonah. And that idea of, Jonah's just sitting off on the hill just waiting. And boy, when it doesn't happen, it just
Makes him
ruins
mad.
his life, man. So
I think this passage right there speaks to that.
yeah, if you're living for the destruction of your enemies.
Because, we shouldn't be living for that. Instead, we should be pursuing God and keeping in mind that if it wasn't for God's grace, that'd be the same place that we would be at.
That's what I was thinking is like whatever we hate our enemies for, they probably hate you
for something
for the same, you know what I'm saying?
If not
Like,
worse.
you're so selfish. Are you not selfish? Well, you're so whatever. Well, are you? You know what I mean? Like, so I always think of like the mentality of the metaphor of like being in a prison full of, it's a high security. We're all guilty of some horrible offense. Maybe I killed somebody. Maybe you, like, whatever. I don't even want to say, like, you know what I mean? We're all guilty of some horrible, horrible thing, and we're pointing fingers at each other.
Yeah. Like, you're worse
well,
than
at
me,
least
you're
I
worse-
didn't eat my grandma. It's like we're all messed up. So.
Yeah. And it's like, it brings me to mind, I don't remember the actual verse, but it's in Psalms, but it's one of the Psalms of Ascent. But it's talking about show kindness to your neighbor. By doing that, you'll heap coals of fire upon his head.
That was mentioned Sunday. They were saying that coals were like, a good thing.
Yes, because Isaiah.
It's like, hey, here's a handy way to start a new fire. Would you like some coal on your head?
What
Because it would
does
carry
the what does the angel do to Isaiah when he's brought into the throne room of God? He brings a
cleanses his
coal
mouth.
out and he cleanses his mouth.
Yeah.
And that's what we're doing. It's not punishment for them. What it's doing is it's changing the way they're looking at on their head. It's changing the way they're thinking. So that they start reevaluating stuff when if you show kindness. So you're not like everybody else. So when this happens, there's something different about you. And it's like what you mentioned earlier. There's a hope that you're living for. That I want some of that, and it causes them to change, and it causes that burning, like what Jeremiah said, like a burning inside my bones. I can't keep it in, and it changes the way they see the world.
Do you have a fire inside your bones and you got to let it out, James?
You know what gets
I got
that
a chill
out?
inside of me.
Really hot shower. We'll get that.
Really hot shower.
Yeah.
That's only sunburn.
You need to scald it out of you.
That's only sunburn. All right, let's carry on.
Well, my verse isn't until the very end, so I don't know about
All
you
right,
guys.
Josh is next then.
Put your outdoor work in order and you get your fields ready. After that, build your house. Make sure you have a chicken coop and a goat fence.
Absolutely.
That's the message.
Over and over in Proverbs, it talks about how, like, planning is probably going to end up falling out from underneath you somehow. Like, you can plan all you want and it's not going to matter because God's will is basically going to win. But I like this verse because it is a reminder that you got to kind of have an idea of what you're shooting for, right? You got to set everything up, and the idea that you have the foundation of the land that you're about to build on all in order before you get started doing that. Nothing too real profound.
Well,
about
I've also
that.
heard for this same verse is counsel especially when you teach teaching with younger people. They're so they see their parents and they have a home and they have all this stuff, but yet what they don't have, or the young person, is a job and a bank account and all this other kind of stuff.
Right.
If you is finish your outdoor work. It's to get your job in line, get good at a trade, do what needs to be done to make a living, so that you can support a family. You know, get your house built, to bring all that stuff in. Don't put your cart before the horse, kind of deal.
Well, if you're privileged like Pool Boy here, and then you don't have to worry about
Mm-hmm.
it. Hey,
Who's got $5? Poor boy, dude.
Well, I'm surprised you didn't want to take the verse before that, though. That one right there seemed like it'd be an interesting topic discussion.
Yeah, I don't really want to touch
Which
that
verse
one.
is this?
An honest answer is like a kiss on the lips. I'm gonna leave that one alone.
A big wet one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, plant one right there. All right, well, we will go on to I think it's your turn.
Wow.
Monsieur Jeff.
So we're gonna wrap it up. 30 through 34. I think that's a long one, but whatever. Here we go. I walked by the field of a lazy person, the vineyard of one with no common sense. I'm reading it like it's a limerick or something.
Do it.
I saw that it was overgrown with nettles. It was covered with weeds. Its walls were broken down. Then, as I looked and thought about it, I learned this lesson. A little extra sleep, a little more slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest. Then poverty will pounce on you like a bandit. Scarcity will attack you like an armed robber. This is like speaking to my natural inclination. I am happy to sleep. I would, you know what I mean? It's a struggle. It is a struggle to get out of bed in the morning. And if given the opportunity, you know, and you guys know this is what's the verse about? You know, Devil's Playground, idle hands. What is it?
Idle hands of the devil's workshop.
Is that
It's just the same.
Is that from the Bible or no?
Well, it does talk about that in Timothy when Paul says, and we'll find it.
Because I mean, I found that to be very true. Because when you have nothing to do, and my students do this, I've taught for 18 years now, and I know if you give students even just a couple minutes of free time, it all falls apart. It all falls apart.
Most of the trouble happens when they don't have nothing to do.
You have to give them structure from the moment they walk in to the moment they walk out, and you can give them the illusion of freedom by saying, here, you can choose from these 3, activities. But it has to, you still have to have that structure, because otherwise, chaos. But I just know that my natural inclination, I am very naturally lazy, and it's good to have a list of things that I need to do.
Yeah, it keeps things in order.
You know what I mean? Because I think otherwise, it's just too easy for me, at least, to just sit back and, man, I spent my whole day doing nothing. And so it's just kind of shocking at how easy it is to just waste precious days relaxing.
We were talking about distractions earlier, and I mean, you can literally pick up your phone anywhere, anytime, and you can look up, and you're like, oh, there was an hour? Good grief.
Oh my gosh, if I were to look on my phone right now, I don't want to look on my phone, but Apple has that thing, screen time.
It shows you how much. Mine keeps telling me I don't do enough.
You're not picking up your phone enough?
Well, yeah, it says your average has gone down. And
really?
It says we're looking, and then it wants me to go look at something.
Oh man, no, mine. Yeah, I don't even want to know what mine is. But I do read my Bible on the phone, so.
Well, that's part of screen. I guess that kind of skews the bad data, I guess.
But I do watch hours and hours of YouTube. I was watching this guy he makes homemade Rubik's cubes. And I'm like, this is fascinating stuff. I'm like,
Rubik's cubes.
Yeah. There's something about, especially when they build or they're fabricating something, anything on a lathe, that.
Well, I just found another one, doggone it. Somebody shared it on Facebook, and now I had to follow him on YouTube because, like, he machines these amazing. I mean, when you watch him, it's like, good grief, it just boggles the mind at like how, a little bit of artistic ability and the right tools, and you're like, what did you make?
Yeah, it's crazy.
But then, like 5 hours later, okay, well, that was a waste of my time. So yeah, a little extra sleep, a little more slumber, a little folding in the hands, and then poverty will pounce on you like a bandit. Scarcity will attack you like an armed robber. It's like, one extreme or the other. You're either a workaholic in America trying to you're sacrificing family time because, man, I could get this raise or I could get this bonus or whatever. Or then there's the other end of it where it's like,
I don't.
Daddy needs a break, so I'm just gonna lay out on the the hammock and do
on the
nothing.
government.
So there's gonna be a happy middle.
It's like Ecclesiastes says, hold on to both.
Yeah.
Sleep a little,
It's
work
like
a little.
38 Special says, hold on loosely and don't let go.
Is that the song?
Hold on loosely.
Huh.
Not impressed.
Oh,
I see.
Okay.
is your timer not running or what?
Oh, I haven't even said it.
This is why your phone says you need to pick your phone up more.
Yeah. Wow. So are we going to try to tackle the Coulson book? It is 8:45.
Yeah, we can run
mention
through
it.
it. We can run through it.
I kind of alluded to it already because
Yes.
when it talks about what page was this?
26.
21 through 24.
Oh, wait, really?
You read the wrong one.
I did read the wrong one.
So when I sent that video and said I think this speaks to it, you're like, well,
That's what I was
see how.
confused about.
In the end, evolution made me do it.
So the title of this chapter, or whatever it's called, is "Darwin Made Me Do It," and the idea being that from an evolutionist, atheistic, materialistic, science answers all, and we're nothing but atoms. Then there is no right or wrong. There's no moral is
Definitely no
either an
justification.
illusion or just a convenient social construct that allows us to evolve more peacefully or whatever. But ultimately it's not real.
Yeah.
And then they reference apparently, oh my gosh,
A couple of books.
the natural history of rape, a book by some two researchers, and they argued that rape it's a natural expression of reproduction energies, which it sounds horrible, and it should sound horrible, but man, if you're an honest atheist, you have
What
to.
what would be wrong with that statement
Right.
if you're not accountable to God and everything is just evolving from an evolutionary perspective? Like I said, there should be anything wrong with that statement. Just like
Like I was
he
talking about my
points out-
ducks when we had those ducks. It's painful to watch, but it's that's just how those ducks. That's nature. I never said that duck is a rapist. I mean that's just unfortunately.
if they both were consensual.
I don't think this duck was consenting to.
But it's like he compares it to that other lady who also Susan, who also wrote a book Against Our Will, and it was speaking about how it's an act of aggression and designated to intimidate women, but they both are writing from an atheistic point of view.
Well, no, she's talking about a Darwinist imperative to reproduce and pass along one's genes.
That's the
That's
those
the
two
other
guys.
Okay.
But what he was bringing out in this chapter was that both are arguing from the worldview of like an atheistic evolutionary worldview. So she was really just arguing against the outcome of her own worldview,
Right.
which is what those guys.
Yeah, her
are
name
for.
is Barbara Heinrich. In Time magazine, they describe her as a feminist writer, and she's obviously upset with these gentlemen and how they, make it sound like rape is just it's a natural, expression of our desire to reproduce. But then Coulson points out that, well, lady, you really can't complain because as, an evolutionist, as a believer in.
Goo.
We're all just, we're just
man.
animals, right? Aren't we highly evolved animals? And this is what animals do.
Yeah.
If my example would be like, okay, fine, let's dumb it down and just say an amoeba. If we're really nothing more than just, super amoeba, well, an amoeba doing anything, there's no moral decision.
There's no
amoeba.
ethical choice that an amoeba makes when it does anything.
It just does what it does,
It got me questioning about the whole idea about what was even presented in here, and I would be totally against the idea that
I think the train is
leaving?
getting ready to make it stop.
is about it being natural from one perspective or the other, because I think it is just an outpouring of our fallen nature, and it got me looking into some of the stats on it, and 1 out of 10 victims are male in rape things. 91% or up to 91% are female victims, but 99% are male offenders, which tells you that it's not just female victims. So you can't blame it on, I just want to pass my genes along, unless it's really your genes.
That was
wrong.
not as funny as my
Over
mommy
75
I won't touch that.
over 75% of cases involve drug and or alcohol use of the perpetrator.
Well, that's I mean, this it goes back to there's a
Consent.
who's the guy? Greg Kokel wrote a book, and I can't remember the title, but something about like reality, Christian worldview, whatever. I don't know. Anyways, and the whole idea is that in a Christian worldview, this all makes sense. Rape makes sense in a Christian worldview because we believe that it's not condoned, but it makes sense. If God is real and living outside of God, the only source of correct, right behavior is by living in a relationship defined by, this is how God designed us and this is how it's supposed to work, and we've run off into the distance into, left field somewhere. It only makes sense that it's all going to become all these horrible acts of violence. I mean, that just makes sense. This is the world we live in.
Exactly.
That's what the Bible teaches. So when people are in uproar over rape or, all these social injustices, and I'm like, yeah, man, this is what I'm preaching. It's called sin.
Yeah, and there's a reason why you see this stuff going on.
My worldview makes sense of this.
Fallen
Your
worldview.
worldview makes no sense of it. Your worldview says that this is all meaningless, and you're having a fit over, equal rights and over sexual injustice and da-da-da. I'm like, man, you're complaining about things that are not even real in your worldview. According to your world, this is all just make-believe stuff.
Make-believe,
Love and
or
hate
just you could say
aren't
survival
even
of the
real.
fittest, and all those other kind of arguments. And it's like what God intended to be good and a constructive joint effort between a man and a woman, outside of God, when he removes himself from this situation, or you remove him from your worldview, that automatically turns into a self-serving mentality. So sex no longer becomes something to benefit or to be used for the edification of your partner. Rather, it's lust now, and it's be used for your own selfish gratification. And that's why you have people with that, and that's where rape comes from. Not a desire to propagate or to pass your genes on, but to serve your own needs and at the expense of others.
It's selfishness to the extreme, to the obscene. But that's what I'm talking about. Is like when I'm talking to my friend Ralph, and he just dismisses all this. If I say well, here's the deal, Ralph. If you want to talk about science, my worldview has an answer to that. It plugs in. It aligns with my worldview. If you want to talk about philosophy, you want to talk about this. If you want to talk about that, everything seems to line up with the Christian worldview. And this is another example where even evolutionists, this feminist writer that they're referring to, is having a hard time living in the evolutionist's worldview, and yet knowing that rape is wrong.
Yeah.
Knowing that it can't just simply be survival. And that goes back to that discussion from the Unbelievable podcast, where the guy said, this evolutionist was saying, man, we need something to guide us, because evolution alone, we're gonna kill ourselves.
Something has got to change or be out there to give us a higher standard, but don't want to acknowledge
that's what
it.
like that C.S. Lewis quote.
Yeah.
I love that. A man does not call a line crooked unless he has some idea of what is of a straight line.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, like, how do you get the basis to call anything right, wrong, or anything?
Right.
It all spirals out of control, and you have absolutely no foundation to set anything on.
No foundation for good, for love, for any of that without having God there.
But it's funny because he desires the product of religion, like all the discipline of it and all the good that comes from it. But you can't do that. Like I don't know. It's messed up. It's sad because
He's
that's
the epitome of what
people's-
Paul warned us about in the godlessness in the last days. People have a form of godliness but deny its power. They want, like you said, the form of it. They want the mechanisms and the discipline that comes out of it, but they don't want God.
This is
They're accountable to him.
on the YouTube video for the it's a Brett Weinstein interview.
Alistair McGrath, right?
And it says, "Do we need a new religion to stop our own evolutionary genocide?" Is the subtitle of that episode. And it says, in this extract from Brett Weinstein and Alistair McGrath's live London conversation, Weinstein responds to the question of whether his concern that we put, quote unquote, our best ethical selves in the driving seat instead of evolution is akin to proposing a new religion. And so, if I'm remembering the clip correctly, yeah, he's basically saying, man, if we just embrace evolution blindly, we're going to wipe ourselves out, because it's going to be survival of the fittest, atomic bomb style, and there's not going to be, everybody's going to be raping and pillaging, getting their genes out, getting their, I mean, that's the logical conclusion of that worldview. And so here he is. Does he hear the how ridiculous it must sound to say that our best ethical selves maybe don't have ethics?
Say in an evolutionary mindset,
it's all accident.
Not ethical.
It's all like, yeah. I mean, it's just,
if it's purely naturalism, there's no ethical, moral choice to be made. So, wow. It definitely shines a light on God needs to be in the picture in your worldview if you're going to make proper, good, and loving choices.
Well,
and you can't get around that.
I want to say
you have to be accountable to Him as Creator and Lord.
I feel like it's maybe been on those unbelievable that podcast, Unbelievable, for anybody who's not know what we're talking about. It's like Unbelievable ? It's Justin Brierley. Anyways, they get those two opposing worldviews together. But I want to say I've heard a few times over the years where some of those, the atheists and whatever, will admit, hey, we need religion.
Oh, yeah.
Even though it's fake, even though it's brainwashing, even though it's, make-believe, it's still, there's a benefit to it.
Oh, yeah. There's several of them like that.
At least they kind of give that concession, that they can see that there is a beneficial quality to it, which is, ridiculous that they won't take it to the next step and say, well, there's also a logical necessity for it,
You got the logic out the window if you want to take a purely naturalistic view of the world.
Or if you want to sunbathe in hot water.
No,
yeah, that's true.
No, you don't sunburn. With hot water takes away the burn of sunburn. It does. It really does.
I think I read every chapter, or not every chapter, but every section of that book, but that one. Somehow,
really?
Some way. There's some really off the wall people and lies in there.
But with that, we're going to be wrapping it up, and next week we'll be getting together and discussing consumerism
in the church.
In the church.
And the Christian brand.
Absolutely.
What would Jesus do?
What would he do? There's, that's licensed. Somebody's making money off of that.
Oh, still. And then there's a movie with the guy that was playing
Kevin Sorbo.
No.
Sorbet.
Yeah. Kurt McCaskill.
No, it's he played in the.
Laszlo Panaflex.
What?
It's like a type of material that's like this Panaflex is great. I can bend over.
Guys, the original ones.
Oh.
Rudy?
The blonde-headed guy, the original Dukes of Hazzard. Yeah. I guess his name was Luke in the movie or something.
Cody St. James.
I don't know, man.
I don't know, but anyhow, he's in a movie titled "What Would Jesus Do?"
Oh, really?
WWJD.
Are you sure it isn't What Would James Do?
No, that's always a good book to go back to. It touches on everything we talk about.
WWJBD?
Or no, it should be WWJBS. What would
BS?
Well,
we took a turn there, didn't we?
I'm glad it was Josh Bunner.
This is when the end credit music kind of playing along.
All right. But with that, you've been listening to the Word Lover podcast with your host James Beasley, Josh and Jeff, the pool boy.
The pool boys. Josh and Jeff.
Boys.
We're conjoined.
Conjoined with waters.
And
cut. God bless.